Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And I am having such a great day today. I feel so good, so peaceful, so serene. And this is actually the first video that I'm filming over here today. I usually film my drama video first, and then the Peter Does Stuff video, and then I kind of work my way through my videos. I have a list over here of my videos that I want to make for the day, and I wasn't even sure. I went to a meeting earlier, and I got back, and I was like, maybe I'll just take a nap and take it light today, and I was like, no, I'm like really in the mood to film some videos. So I thought, well, where should I start? And I was like, you know, I've been asked to make this video. I got a comment on a previous Peterisms video, and then the person sent me a message, and they said, I left you a comment, but I would really like for you to address this as well in a video. So I thought, well, this is a perfect topic to talk about over here, and it's something that I really love to talk about because it's something that I'm still working on, but something that I've done a lot of work on, and that is being responsive versus being reactionary. So let me read the comment to you first before we get into this. I have it all pulled up right here. So the comment says, working on not being reactionary myself, and then they talk about some family issues and reactionary people and their family. Any tips on how to not be so reactionary? It's a huge character flaw of mine, this person says. And, you know, it was a huge character flaw of mine as well, and still can be when it flares up. You know, it's something that I have struggled with for a very, very, very long time, probably my entire life, once I kind of like found my voice. I think, you know, after I got sober, and when I talk about finding my voice, I mean, when I started, you know, to some degree, speaking my mind about things, having an opinion, in my youth, like when I was younger and things like that, I wasn't somebody that ever, like, said if I was upset or whatever. In fact, if my dad was sitting here, one of the things that he would tell you is, like, Peter as a child, like, never cried, which I'm sure is very hard for many of you to believe. He'd say, you know, like, Peter really didn't express his emotions at all. I didn't. I was, you know, very just kind of muted to everything. And I think, you know, going through so much in my life, growing up in chaos and things like that, I just kind of learned to just kind of weather the storm to some degree, like just take it as it came. And I really never expressed my emotions or, you know, shared how I felt and things like that. And then when I started using, I just muted those feelings and those emotions, right? And so if I like felt sad or I was crying, many times it was because I was drinking or using substances that kind of allowed me to let those feelings out. And then when, you know, I would be angry or happy or excited or whatever, all of my emotions were kind of controlled by substances. And then when I got sober, I didn't really know how to feel anymore, you know? And I've shared this several times that I had a good friend of mine that she and I both got sober kind of together. My sobriety birthday is the 17th of December, and her sobriety birthday is the 1st of January. But we spent, I mean, I would say the first 6 months of our sobriety going to meetings together, all the time together. And I can remember this one moment, and she said one of the worst parts of sobriety is having all these emotions and not being able to mute them, not knowing what to do with them. And I think that's the thing, right? Is that when you're using, or even if you're not somebody that's, you know, an addict or an alcoholic, it's like we grow up and, you know, people talk about, I can remember like seeing feelings charts, and like, I remember the first time I saw a feelings chart, like the first time I ever went to like therapy or treatment. And by feelings chart, I mean, if you look up feelings chart online, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's all these faces, and they'll say like happy, sad, excited, you know, there's like tons and tons of feelings. And I can remember thinking, I think I only have like one feeling. Like that's what I felt the very first time, was I only had like one feeling. Then when I started like being able to identify my feelings were like happy, sad, and angry. And they were very specific feelings. Like happy was like really happy. Sad was like traumatic, sad, crying, couldn't get through my day. And then angry was like, I was really pissed off. And those were kind of the only three feelings I knew how to feel. I didn't do very well at being content. I didn't do very well at just being peaceful and accepting my day as it was. I had a very, very hard time just being content with, you know, accepting my day as it was and things like that. And, you know, several years ago, I started talking about this on my vlog to the point where people were like, oh my God, he talks about this all the time. But I kind of got to this point where I realized, you know, I was looking at my days like on a scale of 1 to 10, like 1 being horrible and 10 being amazing. And all of my days either kind of fell between like 8, 9s, and 10s or 1, 2s, and 3s. And like the rest of them, like the 4s through 7s, I really didn't pay much attention to. And then what I realized was the majority of my days actually, if I were being honest, were between 4s and 7s. They were just days that not huge things happened, that they were days that I was peaceful and I was content. You know, I had a good cup of coffee, I got to spend some time with my husband and my dog, I got to watch a TV show or a movie, you know, I was productive, but it wasn't like anything super sad, super tragic, super exciting, super happy, anything happened. They were just days that were content. And what I realized was I was missing out on the fact that I wasn't appreciating those days of being content, because I would always be like, oh, well, today wasn't the greatest day, or today wasn't, you know, the worst day. I was missing out on really appreciating those days that were just simple and content, right? Like, those days are important too, those 4 to 7s, you know? And I think that because I grew up in chaos was, the way that I look at it, was high moments of tragedy and sadness with high moments of happiness and excitement. It was always like looking forward to something or being extremely sad and angry about something. It was like I always fluctuated between those two. And so that's kind of how I grew up. That was long before I ever picked up and started using, right? Even though I believe I was born an alcoholic and addict, but that was long before I ever picked up. I felt those emotions. So I grew up in that chaos, and that was how I grew up around people that were very reactionary, you know? I can remember my mom, like, slamming down the phone and being like, I can remember that with my mom, you know? And not knowing how to handle that, not knowing what to do, that she was very upset over some phone call she had or what somebody told her, you know, and things like that. And that wasn't only when she was drinking, that was at other times. And I can remember, you know, my mom being somebody that was very, very reactionary. My father is not somebody that's very reactionary. He is definitely somebody that is more responsive. Probably, he is the opposite of reactionary. He is like somebody that just like takes it in. I mean, he really doesn't respond a lot unless you actually ask him for a response, and he'll tell you what you want to hear. But that's usually, you know, prefaced by him saying, do you really want to know what I think? So, you know, for years, I was very, very reactionary. And the way that I explain reactionary is that something happens and you immediately react to it, right? And that I should actually, since I'm sitting in front of the computer, I should look up a definition of reactionary and see what it says. Let's just look it up and see what the definition for reactionary is, so I can give you guys a definition that we can all kind of go by. Reactionary. Well, that's the definition by the dictionary. Let's look it up and see it. What does it mean if somebody is reactionary? In popular usage, reactionary refers to a strong, well, it's talking about political, societal, economic, reactionary ideologies, but that's not what we're talking about in this situation. Let's talk about it, see if I put in mental health, what it says, because that's more of what I'm talking about. Okay, I have a feeling I'm not going to get the definition I want. What is emotional reactivity and how to end the cycle? Okay, maybe this is a good one. Let's see what it says. Slowing down and actively listening are essential to ward off emotional reactivity. Okay, is it talking here about what emotional reactivity is? Recognition is, once we recognize our own reactivity and figure out our triggers, we become aware of how prone we are to misread people. It takes a fair bit of self-discovery to uncover some of the underlying triggers behind emotional reactivity, but the benefits are obvious. Less unnecessary emotional disturbance, a better relationship with your loved ones, and seeing your partner in reality more clearly, which I agree with all of those. Emotional regulation, the balancing act. Does it give you does it give us a definition of emotional reactivity? Points to remember. Most of us react all the time. Try to put your own reactions and emotions aside to truly hear what the other person is saying. We are emotionally reactive when we react impulsively. We overreact. I think for me, emotional reactivity is when I overreact to what is happening to me. I want to see if there's what does reactive mean in mental health? Reactivity is a psychological phenomenon that happens when someone changes the way they behave because they know they're being observed. No, that's not what we want. This is not going well. Okay. So it talks in here about traumatized energy and a reactive state. For me, what it is like when I hear something that's unsettling to me, or when I share an opinion that maybe, or somebody shares an opinion with me that it doesn't align with mine, or like if somebody shares an opinion with me back in the day and I don't align with that or I don't agree with that, I'm like, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. You're wrong, right? Like I don't take it in. I don't think about where that other person is coming from. I just immediately tell them they're wrong, right? And I think when I'm talking about it in regards to like bad news I might get or whatever, it's like immediately like I'm like, oh my god, like I go from like a 1 to a 10 immediately, And the example that I always use in videos is like if somebody hits you, you immediately want to just hit them back. You don't really think about like, wow, this person hit me. Like I didn't expect this person to hit me. I love this person. Like why are they hitting me? Like that hurts, And then like processing it and then saying to the other person, like I really didn't appreciate it when you hit me. My reaction was that I wanted to hit you back to make you feel the same way that I felt. But after sitting on it, I thought about it, and now what I realize is I don't appreciate the fact that you think it's okay to treat me that way. Like that hurts my feelings. I would say that's where I was 3 to 5 years ago, okay? So being responsive to me is kind of working through all the emotions of reactivity. Being reactionary for me is like that just instant response that you have. I just wish I had like a really good, 3 examples of a reactive person. It's not, common statements made when someone is being reactive include, it's just the way I am, there's nothing I can do, she ruined my day, the teacher wasn't fair. Blaming is an easy way to take responsibility off your own behaviors. That's another good example, I think, of being reactive. It's just always blaming it on somebody else, saying it's your fault, you did this, you did that. It's never taking it and actually processing it and looking at what your part is, But I wanted to explain this to you because, I would say 5 to 6 years ago, I was somebody that it was always important that my side was heard. It was always important that if I felt like somebody saw me in a wrong light, and I still struggle with this today, to prove them wrong, to show proof. I shared years ago, I've shared it many times, that I found these journals of my mom, and on them they said evidence, because my mom lived her entire life wanting to like prove that what she was saying and did was true, right? And there becomes a point when you realize you're never going to prove everybody wrong. Like people are going to believe what they're going to believe. Where I was, I would say 3 to 5 years ago when I started this process, was needing to have that conversation where I would say to that person, and I will tell you that becoming responsive, instead of being reactionary, is really all about me. It's not really about the other person at all. I really can't do, that has been so helpful to me to realize I can't do any work on the other person. Like what they do is on them. I can't change them at all, right? But where I was 3 to 5 years ago, I would say, is that like I would need to sit down and have that conversation with them and say, hey, like I just need to tell you, like what you said when you hit me, like I didn't appreciate that. Like if you go back and watch my videos from 3 years ago, I was probably saying that. Where I'm at today, like even as I was just giving you that example and I was working it through my head, is by the time I've worked it through my head, what I realize is even that conversation isn't really necessary, because I've already had that conversation with that person before on how I feel like they treat me or how they whatever. But really for me, being responsive is processing things, by either doing inventory, journaling it, writing it down, talking to my therapist, processing it with another person. It could be even a friend, right? And just saying, what do you think about this? And being open to them, that they may say something I don't want to hear. But many times they say things that I'm like, oh, I didn't think of it that way, right? Today, I don't necessarily need to have that conversation. In fact, I was just talking to my friend Tanya about this today. It's like, where I'm at today with it, what I realize is when somebody, and I think it is definitely hard when it's a family member, but I will say this, okay? And I haven't had to do this often in my life, but there have been a few people in my life that are, either family of origin or family of choice, just a few that I have had to not have contact with because they're toxic to my life. And that's just how it has to be. There were periods of my life when my mother was very toxic to me. I've shared that after I got sober, I wasn't able to have a lot of contact with her because she was a trigger for me. And my mom also drank a lot. And so when people say to me things like, well, I can't not have a relationship with this person because of A, B, and C, and they're my parent, or they're my grandparent, or they're my sister, or whatever, No, that's the boundary you're setting for yourself. And I know this is going to sound harsh, but you absolutely can. There are a lot of people that don't have relationships with family in their life, that they've chosen that that's not healthy for them. It's a hard decision to make, but if it's not healthy for your life, then maybe that's where you need to go with it. Let that person know. Say, hey, listen, this is where I'm at. I love you. You're my sister, brother, grandparent, parent, whatever. Like, I want you in my life, but I cannot have this in there, and you're not understanding what I'm saying to you. And we've had many conversations about this, and you're continuing to be toxic in my life, and I can't continue to have it. So if it's going to continue to happen, I'm just going to tell you that I'm going to exit your life until you can work on this, because I can't have it in my life. And I can tell you what will happen is that person will in return put it on you. And, well, you just can't accept me how I am, like this person said in here. You know, this is just who I am. You take me or you leave me, whatever. Well, I'll leave them people today. I don't need those people in my life, okay? I don't care if I have 2 people in my life or 1 person in my life. I'd rather have 1 person of quality that has my back, that loves me and cares about me, than 10 people in my life, whether they're by blood or by choice, that are bringing detriment and destruction to my life. I don't need that today. Period of end of story. I just don't, you know? And the reality is, through many tragedies that I've gone through in my life, I've really learned, I've seen people's true colors. I've seen who was there for me and who wasn't. At times when, and this is not tit for tat, but I've seen like, okay, I've been there for this person through all these things. They weren't necessarily there for me. And that's hurtful, you know? So do I need to have those conversations with people today the way that I did 3 to 5 years ago? No, I not necessarily. Because I know the sunlight is really bad in here. Sunlight of the spirit. But where I'm at today is I really judge people on how they treat me. And actions speak louder than words. With myself, too, you know? Like, if I'm going to work on myself and expect that from other people, then my actions need to meet my words as well, you know, and I need to be that person to people in my life as well, my friends and family. If I'm going to say I'm sorry, I should act like I'm sorry. You know, if I'm going to say I love somebody, I need to act like I love somebody. And so that's where I'm at with it today. Is if somebody says out of their mouth they love me, but then they say hurtful things, they do hurtful things, whatever, they don't have my back, that's not a person that, they're not acting like they love me, right? Which is a statement that I learned from my friend years and years and years ago. You know, you treat me as if the way that you treat me, you think it's okay. Like, it doesn't matter how I'm treated. So what are the tricks to becoming less reactionary and more responsive? Well, first of all, I don't like how I act when I'm reactionary. You know, I've seen examples of that. When I'm reactionary, I say things I wish I could take back that I can't. When I'm reactionary, I act in ways that I want to take back that I can't. I have examples of that in my life, going back all the way to when I was in high school. So I have a list of examples that I can go to in my head. So in a moment where I want to be reactionary, I just go back to that moment and go, you're going to either have to make an amends, or you're going to have to take ownership over this, and you're going to have to say, God, I wish I hadn't said those things. I wish I hadn't done those things, you know, whatever. Is this really the out? And then I have to play it through. This is all part of being responsive, is processing this in my head. Is me being reactionary going to get the result that I want? Is somebody saying something to me and me saying back to them, F you, is that going to get the response I want? Probably not, right? Now, there's a difference between being responsive and being a doormat. A doormat, to me, and I've been one in my life before, and I know people don't like that word, but that's when I lay down and I allow people to walk all over me and just say and do what they want to do. That's not being responsive, okay? Responsive is making deliberate choices on how you're going to pursue a relationship and how you're going to speak to that person in the future, whether you address that situation or not. But for me, one of the biggest tricks is, how did I act in the past? You know, when people say that we're changed or we're changing, we're evolving and we're growing, have you? I don't want to be that person that would say to somebody, F you and blah, 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 whatever, like I was in the past. So, and I still have moments of that today, right? Like, I mean, I'm not a perfect example of this. I'm forever changing and growing. I still fall into that every once in a while. It's like, you know, I'll do good and then it's like, you know, and I still have those moments. But that's probably the one trick for me, is like looking back on past moments where I was reactionary and being like, it didn't fare well for me, you know? The other thing is the emotional roller coaster that goes along with being reactionary, because the majority of the people that I have been reactionary with in the past, or when I'm reactionary and they're reactionary back to me, it just goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it becomes this long thing, and it's like I never like leave the discussion feeling like I'm heard or that they were heard or I feel like there was any conclusion to it, you know? And so there's this emotional roller coaster that goes along with it where days on end afterwards, I'm still thinking about it. I'm still borrowing it. I'm like, God, I just don't want to be like this anymore. I don't want to feel like this anymore. I just want to call this person up. And then I call the person up and I'm like, hey, I don't like how we left things. Well, I don't either. And let's talk about it. Okay, well, you know, and then if I'm still in a reactionary state, what I'll say is, well, when you said this and this and this, well, wait a second. And then it goes back to that again. And then once I've had 3 or 4 of those conversations, I'm like, you know what? We just don't see eye to eye anymore. A third part of it is for me not to be reactionary, and this is a really like a 12-step thing that's really helped me with inventory, is really taking a look in that part about what is my part in that situation and just cleaning my side of the street, right? That again is not being a doormat. That's owning my part. That's cleaning my side of the street up. So when I'm looking at somebody and we're having this situation and I'm wanting to be reactionary, instead I can look at that and say, have I said or done anything in this conversation that might make them feel a certain way? Can I own that? Can I take responsibility for it? So when I call them back up and I say, hey, listen, I don't like that you said this to me, right? Like that's probably not a good way to start the conversation. Instead, if I say, I want to start this conversation over, I understand that some of the things that I said to you, you probably heard a certain way, and for that I take ownership over it, okay? And I'm going to, going forward, change the way that I say things because I can tell that they're not heard by you. And then ask them, are there things that I could say or do differently? How can I communicate to you in a different way that you hear what I'm saying, okay? Now that's either going to be met with somebody that's going to be responsive as well and say, I've thought about things too. This is my side of it, right? Or that's going to be met with somebody that's reactionary, that's going to say, well, you did say some shit that hurt my feelings, and this really isn't about me at all, and I really didn't do anything. And that's a real red flag to me that I don't need to be having a relationship with that person, especially when I've had that conversation 3 and 4 times. I want to have conversations that are over here, okay? Where I can own my part, they can own their part, and we can move forward. And the reality I have to learn sometimes is, sometimes they don't have a part in things, right? Sometimes it is just my part. And sometimes I don't have a part in something, you know? Sometimes I can call them and say, my part is that I've held on to this for the last week and I haven't called you, you know? I know at 51 years old, and really in all honesty, if I look back on my life, at 41, at 31, at 21, I really didn't need relationships in my life where I was fighting with people and wanting to just make them feel the way that I felt. Being reactionary for me a lot is wanting somebody to feel as badly as I feel. Wanting somebody's feelings to hurt as badly as my feelings hurt by what they said or did to me. I don't have that need today. I need peace and serenity in my life. I need content days. So those are some of the tricks that I use, right? I think the other trick is that some of the things that I have been reactionary to in my past, when I look where I've really shown my ass and I've just been a fool and really, like, I really felt like in that moment was important. When I look 6 months or a year down the road, or 2 years or 5 years down the road, some of the things that I was super reactionary in, I don't even remember what they were about now. I mean, in all honesty, I don't. I don't remember what started it. I don't remember what was said. So why was I so heated in that moment? Or were there underlying things going on with me? Maybe I was not in a healthy place. Maybe it was about me, and that's why I wanted to react. You know? Maybe I wanted to shout at the mountaintops, and it didn't matter who was on the receiving end of that or what I was saying. And I need to take a look at that. That's my part, right? But ultimately, it's also about having this big pause button. And when something's coming my way, and I'm like, I've heard enough of it, I can always walk away. I can always leave a situation. I can always hang up the phone. I can say, hey, listen, I can't have this conversation anymore right now. I love you. I'll talk to you later. Bye. And hang up the phone. I can hang up the phone. I don't have to stay in that moment of that situation. I can walk away from that situation. I can hit the pause button. I can even say to myself, I'm going to watch a TV show and I'm going to revisit this for an hour. I don't have to stay in it. You know, my problem for so long was needing to stay in that moment, feeling fired up by that moment because I was somebody that grew up in chaos. And so I thrived on that energy and then needing to be heard. I needed to be heard and I needed to be validated that what I had to say was more important than what you had to say. And it just doesn't matter today. And the reality is I'm not always right. I'm not, you know? And that's probably the final point. Is it more important for me to be right or is it more important for me to be happy? That's a recovery saying. It's more important for me to be happy. I don't need to be arguing with people all the time and having my point get across. It's exhausting, you know? people message me stuff all the time, you know, and that I don't agree with. I'm just like, LOL, thanks, you know, whatever. You know, I have friends of mine in my life today that, well, that's not true. I don't really have a lot of friends in my life that I stand up for the things I believe in today. So I don't really have a lot of people in my life that are not like-minded. We think very similarly when it comes to like spiritual issues, philosophies of life, and things like that. So I don't really have a lot of people in my life that I'm getting in discussions with about belief systems, if that makes sense. I don't feel the need to take to social media to prove to somebody that they're wrong, okay? And I know when people want to bring up my drama channel, that's a gossip tea channel where I'm talking about gossip and tea, okay? That's not real life, okay? That's me talking about gossip tea channel. In my real life, I don't have the desire or the need to take to Facebook to prove that somebody's wrong. I see people do that all the time. That is exhausted energy that I could be spending with my dog, my husband, people that love me, people that want to be in my life, people that don't want to fight with me. I could spend that time watching a show, reading a book, taking a walk, taking a nap. I don't need to exhaust myself in fighting the good fight over something that I'm not going to change somebody's opinion anyway. And I think that's the final point, is when I'm being reactionary to somebody, what is my end game? And playing that all the way through. And is it probably going to end the way that I want it to? And most times the answer is no. You know, my sponsor always says, let them twirl, let them spin. You know, I can let people twirl today. I don't have to engage in that dance. And it has saved a lot of emotion and a lot of energy. And I am much happier today and much more peaceful and serene as a result of it. So I hope that's helpful. Let me know in the comment section below. I love you guys so much, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.